Hello, Glenn Heaton here. In this video, you'll learn some terms that are used when talking about the internet and websites, and I'll show you how these relate to building your website, because as I said in the first video, it's vitally important that you understand how this technology works and how you can use it for your small to medium business. Whether you're looking at an online business or you have a retail or an offline, as it's called, which just means it's a brick and mortar business like a professional services business, and how this relates to you marketing your business today. It's 2016, and as I said, this isn't going away. You need to understand how this works and how you can make it work for your business, because it's incredibly affordable. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and you can change things very, very quickly. That's one of the beauties of how the internet works for your business. You're not stuck into long-term advertisements and promotions anymore. We can change them pretty much at the click of a mouse, and that means we can track and test things that we might want to try. Everything down from colors on a web page to wording on a web page and all those kind of things. And the other thing is that this technology, mobile phones and tablets, you have to understand how that's working now, because without it, you're losing out on a huge slice of your potential market, and indeed how to engage your current customers and get them to come back and buy more. So let's have a look. To start with, we're going to go over the history of the internet. Well, not the whole history, we'll do it very quickly. It was originally set up by a department of the American Defense Forces called ARPA, and it was called ARPANET, and that was the network that was set up. Now, they did this because this is the world, and over here we've got America somewhere, and they set it up so that there was all these interconnecting networks, and that's what the internet is. It's an interconnecting network, and so that if in the event that the big mushroom bomb happened, that all the other departments or bases could still communicate with each other. Now that led to all these cables crossing over, and then eventually crossing over to other areas of the world, and that meant that continents were connected not only by phone lines but also by this network of data cables. So some of that was transmitted across phone lines, of course. So that existing network then became available to universities, and universities started to use it to be able to access their data. So they could put courses and information online, libraries could use it, and that's how things developed. Then a guy by the name of, excuse me, I'll just find my little duster here. A guy by the name of Tim Berners-Lee, around 1989, developed this thing called HTML. Now, this is the language that the internet is made up of, the internet as we know it, as the public uses. So hypertext markup language, it's just the little code, well, not little, but it's the code that is behind how we see and build web pages and do a lot more stuff. There's many other program languages now that are available, but we don't need to know about those for what we're doing. So HTML enables us to look at web browsers, and we do that, look at websites I should say, through web browsers, and I'll go through those in a moment. But let me just come back now to how this all works with websites. So you may have heard of a term called a domain name. Now, some people get confused about domain names. Is it the same as my business name? Do I automatically have a domain name if I have a business name? Well, you don't. They're two separate entities. If you have a business name, such as Perth Local Marketing, then you should have the associated domain name. So I have perthlocalmarketing.com.au. If your business is Fred's Pets, then you should have fredspets.com.au. So that's your domain name. Now, a domain name is also, it can be your web address. Some people call it your web address. So they might say, hey, I'm interested in looking at your website. What's your web address? And you'd say, well, it's fredspets.com.au because that's your domain name. Now, as I said, you don't automatically own that. You have to go to what's called a registrar and buy that domain name. Now, in Australia, a domain name, you register it for 2 years initially, then you can re-register. You don't have to have it for long term. If you have Fred's Pets, let's just say Fred's Pets, and we don't use an apostrophe, fredspets.com.au is our domain name, and we then can re-register that when it comes up for renewal in 2 years' time. Now, that's the .au. The AU is an Australian domain. Now, these are called top-level domains. Some people might say, you might talk to web people and they'll say you need a TLD or a top-level domain. A .com, a .au, a .co.uk, a .co.nz. They're all top-level domain names, such as .net and .org, .association, ASN. They're all top-level domains. Now, then you can go into second and third level or third-tier domains, and you might have .biz or .info and things like that. So there's many more domain names coming out. I recommend to my clients that you have the .au, assuming you're an Australian company, and the .com and the .net, because these are the main ones that we can use for SEO purposes, and that just means the search engine optimization that these domain extensions give us. And we'll go into that in another video, so don't worry about that. But I recommend that you have these because it stops what's called cyber squatting. So say you have Fred's Pets in Australia and you have the .com.au, but another Fred's Pets might open up in America, and they might try to get .com, fredspets.com. So now we have two different websites that belong to two different companies. And if you've spent a lot of time and money and effort promoting your website and your business to this one, fredspets.com.au, then you might not want to lose traffic, it's called, which is just the visitors that come to your website, to someone called .com, because he might be selling online and he might be selling products, and he might be taking away your market. Because if people type in Fred's Pets just as in their search engine, it could bring up both of these websites and people might be attracted to the .com. So you're losing some ground there. So I recommend that you get both, the .net and .au, again for the sake of $9 or so, which is about $12 Australian. It's good insurance to have these, just so that no one can squat and piggyback on the work that you're doing. So that's a domain name. Now, a domain name is also your URL. So let me just clear this up. A URL is simply a acronym for Uniform Resource Locator. So that's the term that a URL is, and that just means that's our HTTP // Fred's Pets. Okay, so that's our URL, .com.au, and then if we had a page about dogs in our Fred's Pet store, it would be fredspets.com.au /dogs. Okay, and that's our URL for that particular page, not for the website. So we have our website, our home page, and then we have our other pages come off, and we might have one for dogs, cats, and contact. And now each of these have their own particular URL. Okay, so our domain name is fredspets.com.au, but our page URLs are /dogs, /cats, and /contact. So we have the two different things there, a domain name and then a URL for different pages on our website. Now, the other big question that I get most of the time is, where does our website live? What's this whole hosting thing and the associated pricing for hosting? Because a lot of people are confused about it and a lot of people are getting ripped off about it. So hosting is really just a place in cyberspace, in the internet, or the cloud these days, as it's becoming more widely known, and we'll go into that again as to cloud services and things like that. But it's really just a computer drive somewhere in a big warehouse anywhere in the world that hosts or where your files for your website live. Okay, so we've got our computer drive here, and it's a little drive arm, and all our files for our home page and our dogs page and our contact page all sit on this. Now, it's usually on what's called a shared hosting, and that just means that on this computer drive, not just Fred's Pets, but we might have Glenn's shirts, and we might have Karen's hairdressing, all living on that one drive. Okay, now that's because it's the most efficient and affordable way to do it. So many websites will rent space, and that's the monthly hosting fees that you might hear about, on somebody's computer somewhere in cyberspace. The physicality can be anywhere, it doesn't really matter. It's helpful if it's in the same locality, such as Australia, if you're an Australian business. It's helpful just because of times to download a page and install a page, because they're what's called ranking factors with Google. If your site is slow to load because it's coming from not a good setup hosting server somewhere else in the world, so it takes longer time to travel that distance, and we're only talking microseconds, but that's how Google works, then it's best to have your site hosted where you're located. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the main capital city, but somewhere in the same country is good. So we've got our site, our domain, and that gives us our website. We've built our website with our pages, and we're now hosting it on our server somewhere, so that when someone types in fredspets.com.au, the internet knows through your browser, we won't go into that technology, but it just knows through a series of what's called a router, it knows that we have to come actually to this computer over here. Okay, so my website, perthlocalmarketing.com.au, is hosted in Sydney. So, although I'm in Perth. So it comes from Sydney and it comes back over here and it lands on my browser, on my screen. Okay, so using this HTML language that was developed. Now, all of this works instantaneously. Okay, it's pretty much a flick of an eye depending on your internet connection, and we all know in Australia that NBN is making its way through, so that will make things quicker, because it means that more data and more information can be transferred at the one time. So we're not slowed down by the inadequacies and the limitations of just a telephone wire, which is old technology. We now have fibre optics and yada yada yada. It just makes things quicker, or it should. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, we view all these web pages and all this web information through a piece of software called a browser. Now, there's four main browsers. There's Internet Explorer, and that's the one that comes normally with a PC, and that's a Windows type machine or computer. So if you've got a laptop with Windows on it, more than likely you're using Internet Explorer to do your browsing. Now, browsing is just looking at things on the internet. You're just taking a browse. Like window shopping, you're just taking a browse. Now, if you're a Mac owner, you'll be using, or you have access to, a browser called Safari. Now, these two are the standard, if you like, run-of-the-mill browsers for everyday activity. So if you're just looking at websites for information, or you might be doing some research, you might be doing some online shopping, you might have through your business network, you might have a sports club, you might be a member of a community and they have a website. These are perfectly adequate for doing all those kind of things. If you want to go up the next level and have a browser that is a little bit more robust and has a little more tools that you don't necessarily need, if you're doing your own websites and things like that we'll go into later, then yes, I'd recommend that you get them. They're free. One is called Firefox, and you might have heard of that. And the other one is called Chrome. And Chrome is a good one because it works, it's a Google product, so it works well with Google searching and all that kind of stuff. So that's your browser. And within your browser, you can open up what's called a window or a tab and search for the information. So a window is just a new version of the browser that you'll open up on your computer, and you'll have up the top here, you'll have file and menu and all those kind of things, and then the website will appear here. Okay, now that's your window. But when you open up another tab, which is just another page or a website on that one window, we'll have little tabs that appear up here, and you might have a few of them open if you're doing some research. So let's talk about Fred's Pets. You might open up Fred's Pets, and then you might say, hey, I want to find out a bit more about dwarf rabbits. So you might open another tab and you'll do a search over here in Google for dwarf rabbits, and that will be another tab. You'll be in the same window because it's the one instance of Internet Explorer, for example, that you have open. If you open up another window, that you'll start again. You'll be able to open up more tabs in that window. So you might have a window for your main research, and you might have another window for another passion that might be guitars, like me. So you have another tab there for guitar 1, guitar 2, guitar 3. Okay, so that's the difference between windows and tabs. Now, another term that you might come across with the internet is downloads. And a download is just how we transfer files from someone's website onto our own computer. So say we've found our rabbits information, and we like the document or the images that are on that website, and it says click here to download. And all that does, it means it takes us from our server. Remember, we were talking about our hosting server before. It takes it from our server, and when I say it's the file, so it could be a PDF, which is a document, it could be a Word document, or it could be an image, or it could be an audio or a video, and it transfers it onto our computer at home. Okay, so that's our computer. And it downloads, because we're coming down from the hosting to our computer. Later on, if we're doing our own websites or we're transferring files, we're going to upload, okay? Because we're going up to the server or to the cloud, okay? Because it's up there. So upload and download, that's how we transfer files. Now this happens to what you might come across, and it's called FTP, or File Transfer Protocol. Just another language that is used over the internet to enable us to do these things, to transfer files, okay? So that's what an FTP, or file transfer protocol is. Now, that's really quickly how an internet domains and hosting work and URLs in the next part of this video, because I want to keep these short so that you're more inclined to watch them just with a cup of tea, and then you can come back and watch the extra sections. So I really want to keep them around the 10 minutes mark. Remember, it's aimed at you who will be a baby boomer or Gen X, early Gen X person who is in business and wants to learn more about how the internet and how this whole digital marketing thing works for your business. So thank you very much for watching. And I'll pick you up in part 2 where we'll go through some more about websites and get into the real nuts and bolts of how a website works and why that's important for your business growth.